Hey. Hi, Ari. Before we commence our service, there are different versions of the Union Prayer Book. I just want to make sure that we're all sort of on the same page. And I know we have different Union Prayer Book versions in the back. So I just want to, I'm using what's called the newly revised. I don't know what that means, but if we go to page 48, we can see whether or not we're all on the same page. Yeah, we, of course, because it's the third Friday of the month, we use the Union Prayer Book to honor our tradition. On page 48, do you see the Roman numeral 4? Okay, they probably changed a few words in the newly revised edition that may not appear in the old edition. Okay, so before we commence our service, I'm going to call on Nate and Iris Ginsburg to come and to light the Shabbat candles. Oh, sure, go ahead. Please, by all means.
Turn to page 7, where we responsibly. Come, let us welcome the Sabbath. May its radiance illumine our hearts as we kindle these papers.
Light is the symbol of the divine. The Lord is my light and my salvation.
Light is a symbol of the divine man. The spirit of man is the light of the Lord.
Light is the symbol of the divine Lord. For the commandment is the light and the law is the light.
Light is a symbol of Israel's mission. I, the Lord, have set thee for a covenant of the people, for a light unto the nations.
Therefore, the spirit of ancient tradition that helped to unite Israel in all lands and all ages. Now kindle the sky. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlikner shel Shabbat.
Blessed art thou, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who has sanctified us by thy laws and commanded us to kindle the light of the Shabbat light. May the Lord bless us with Sabbath joy. May the Lord bless us with Sabbath holiness. May the Lord bless us with Sabbath peace. Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu
the spirit of Shabbat, to let go of our worries that persist throughout the week, our work, and just to meditate for a moment on those things in life that are most important, that give us meaning, as well as the sanctity of sacred rest. Gathered in thy house, O God, now that the shadows of evening fall, we open our hearts to the sweet and comforting influences of the day, hallowed for thy worship. We thank thee for all thy blessings, for the dispensations of thy providence, and for the tokens of thy goodness toward us. Every day we receive of the fullness of thy bounty. By thy protection we have passed safely through the dangers that beset our paths. When we are tried by sorrow and days of anguish are allotted to us, it is not that thou hast forsaken us. Thine eye is ever upon us, and thine arm still guides us. In thine own time, O God, we shall say with the ancient seer, I thank thee that thou hast tried me, for now that thy visitation has passed, thou comfortest me, and I draw waters of joys from the wells of salvation. We pray for all people who are at this hour, are in tribulation, in sickness, in want, in danger of body or soul. And we pray specifically for those in need of healing, Dr. John Johnson, Harold Fink, Emily Fink, Drew Pasaglia, David Cherniak, Amy Sundberg, Elaine Berman, Mark Schoenfeld, Marcia Jacoby, Nita Kramer, Sandra Kelly, Brenda Glussman, Shirley Boyd, Tyler Mazie, Ann Beer, Rose Lyon, Larry Adams, Rachel Lane Cash, Zoe Sutter, and Bahram Hafizi. Is there anyone who you wish to add who is in need of spiritual, physical, or emotional healing? We name in our hearts those who are near to us and in whose afflictions we are afflicted. Let them see thy help and grant them a blessed release from their trials. Throughout the service, we will be referring to these readings that I have passed out, small quotations from either the writings or the speeches or sermons of the late Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I'm going to I didn't think I was going to call on people, but I've changed my mind. Meyer, would you like to read number 1, I believe? And if you could stand, it's a big room.
I believe that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word in reality. This is why right, temporarily defeated, is stronger than evil triumph.
And let us join in prayer, top of page 50. Together, O Lord, be merciful to us in our failings and trespasses, and when we have gone astray, help us to find our way back to thee. Grant us vision and courage that, unhindered and unafraid, we may pursue the paths of truth and duty. Enlighten our minds that we put to the highest use every gift of thy hand, that we cherish a good conscience above worldly gain and a healthy soul above sensual gratification. We need thy help, O Father, in our endeavor to fulfill the deeper longings of our hearts. Be with us as thou wast with our fathers, and help us to live that in work or rest, in company or solitude, we may testify to our faith in thee and thy law. Please rise for the Baruch Hu, middle of page 50. May be seated. Nate, would you lead us on page 51? Thou art our God and Father.
Thou art God and Father, the source whence life and all its blessings flow. Wherever we turn our gaze, we behold signs of thy goodness and grace. The fullness of thy power is disclosed to us from thy gracious view of existence, thy constant shaping of human destiny, and the marvelous works of thy creation. The whole universe proclaims thy glory. Thy loving Spirit hovers over all thy works, guiding and sustaining them. The harmony and grandeur of her angels speak to us of thee, thy infinite might and majesty.
Please rise for the Shema, the affirmation of our faith in the oneness of God. You may be seated. We continue with the V'ahavta.
V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'kol levavecha v'kol nafshecha u'v'kol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha Vishinantam levanecha, bidibartam, bishivtecha, bivitecha, uvlektecha vaderek, uveshokbecha, uvkumeka, ukshaktam leot, ayadecha, vihayule totafot, vinenecha. Uktavtam amuzozot betecha uvisharecha leman tixkeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'tem kedoshim yelhem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti echem Meretz Mitzrayim, Lehiyot lachem, Leohim, Ani Adonai Elohechem.
And for those that have the handout, the readings for Erev Shabbat, in memory of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, let us join together reading number 2. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. And let us continue on page 53. We read responsively. Trust in the Lord with all thy heart, and lean not upon thine own understanding. Remember all the commandments of the Lord and do them, that ye go not about after your own heart and your own eyes. His works and wonders surpass our understanding. His gifts and blessings are without number. We rejoice in his sovereign power. We praise and thanks unto his name. And we continue now with the Mi Chamocha, bottom of page 53, marching in the light of God.
This is a slightly different melody than you will be used to hearing in the classical Reformed service, so I wanted to introduce it. This melody comes from an African folk song, and in South Africa it is actually known as the Freedom Song, the Freedom Anthem. The text is actually in a different language in African. Now, here it has actually been rewritten to include the text of the Mi Chamocha, which is also the freedom song of the Jewish people. And so I thought it was a neat night to include this one, though I know it may be a little out of the realm of our service tonight. But I encourage you to sing along. We will start out with English text, and then we will go into the Mi Chamocha, and then we will repeat the English text.
I think we have a new Mi Chamocha for us. That's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. And let us continue now with the Vishomru, on page, I have it on page 50, excuse me, we're going to continue on page 54 first, and then we'll do the Vishamru. Thy children acknowledge thy sovereign power at the Red Sea. The Lord shall reign forever and ever. As thou hast redeemed Israel and saved him from arms stronger than his own, so mayest thou redeem all who are oppressed and persecuted. Praise be thou, O Lord, Redeemer of Israel. Together, the children of Israel shall keep the Sabbath, to observe the Sabbath throughout their generations, for a perpetual covenant. It is a sign between me and the children of Israel forever. Together in our readings, before we get to the Vishamru, let us read number 3 together. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. And so it is with God when he looked upon the children of Israel to give the Sabbath as an eternal covenant. It wasn't to that generation, but it was with the foresight that we would keep that generation, we would keep that covenant, Brit Olam, the eternal covenant of the Shabbat, as an eternal sign between us and our God. Page 55 of Vishamru. And let us join together, top of page 56. Cause us, O Lord, to lie down each night in peace, and to awaken each morning to renewed life and strength. Spread over us the tabernacle of thy peace. Help us to order our lives by thy counsel, and lead us in the paths of righteousness. Be thou a shield about us, protecting us from hate and war, from pestilence and sorrow. Curb thou also within us the inclination to do evil, and shelter us beneath the shadow of thy wings. Guard our going out and our coming in unto life and peace from this time forth and forevermore. And let us join in a reading on number 4, let us not seek. Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. And let us join in the responsive reading, in the middle of page 56. Iris, would you like to lead us in this? Middle of page 56, praise be thou.
Praise be thou, O Lord, God of our fathers, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the ruler of heaven and earth.
Thou shield of the fathers, protector of their children, revest our drooping spirits.
Holy God, beyond compare, give rest to his people on this holy Sabbath day.
We will serve him with reverence and offer thanks to his name continually.
To him our thanks are due. He is the Lord of peace, who halloweth the Sabbath.
He sanctifieth our worship and filleth our hearts with joy. May the rest and quiet of this hour of worship refresh our inner life and renew in us the sense of thy holy presence. Open our hearts that we behold truth and beauty in the words of the inspired teachers of thy will. Animate our thoughts and endeavors with the power of thy divine purposes, so that whatever our hand findeth to do, we may do with all our might. Fill our hearts with Sabbath peace and serenity, that we may hear the voice of thy Spirit and be moved to build our lives on the foundations of thy law. And reading number 5. True peace is not merely the absence of tension, it is the presence of justice. Together, middle of page 58. Our God and God of our fathers, grant that our worship on this Sabbath be acceptable to thee. Sanctify us through thy commandments, and may we share in the blessings of thy word. Teach us to be satisfied with the gifts of thy goodness and gratefully to rejoice in all thy mercies. Purify our hearts that we may serve thee in truth. Oh, help us to preserve the Sabbath as Israel's heritage from generation to generation, that it may bring rest and joy, peace and comfort to the dwellings of our brethren through it. Name be hallowed in all the earth. Praise be thou, O Lord, who sanctifiest the Sabbath. And number 6, intelligence plus character, that is the goal of true education. And let us continue in silent prayer, bottom of page 58, or such other prayer as the heart may prompt. And we continue with May thy words. Page 60. Let us continue now with reading 7. Together, this is from his Nobel lecture. Every man lives in 2 realms, the internal and the external. The internal is that realm of spiritual ends expressed in art, literature, morals, and religion. The external is that complex of devices, techniques, mechanism, and instrumentalities by means of which we live. And it's a great pleasure. I think we began this tradition maybe a year or 2 years ago, where we've asked James to come forward and tell us about his experience during the civil rights era, before and after, to share his thoughts and reflections. And we have a new attendee, Rachel Evans, who has been coming to our Shabbat morning services and Friday evening service, and I've had the privilege and honor to meet with her on more than a few occasions. And I've asked her to come and speak from her perspective as sort of the next generation, her experiences relative to the civil rights movement and her experiences today upon reflecting of the meaning of those times. So I'm going to begin with James, and we're so honored to have you with us, and you, Rachel, of course, as well.
Again, I want to thank you, Rabbi. It's an honor to speak on Dr. King on this day. I was trying to think today, what could I say about Dr. King? And I decided I would maybe write him a note for my generation. My generation, we marched, we did the things that we did to try to change the world. And we changed it for a while. For a number of years, our things were great. I mean, we did things in this country that we think would never happen. But then sometime I wake up thinking that your dream is turned into a nightmare. It's some of the things that we have worked hard for are being rolled back through the system. You know, it's hard sometimes to not get political when you sit down and think about the things that we're going through right now. And sometimes I just go back and sit in my chair and just sit there and relax and try to think of what would we do without some of the things that are happening right now. Hopefully there's change. I hope that we can make changes with the new generation. Right now, we have no leadership in the world at all. Some of our basic problems, we've lost all the things that Dr. King and other leaders taught us, Reverend Bishop Tutu, other individuals that was involved in the movement. That we have lost our way. I mean, we have lost the thing of love. We have no more love in our people anymore. We are a closed society. I remember 50 years ago when I was involved in the movement, there was an author at Ole Miss during the height of the civil rights movement that wrote a book, it was called Mississippi, the Closed Society. And that's what I think America, this country has now become, the whole United States become a closed society. We are a closed society now, that we are afraid. It's all about fear. We'll let people invade, that fear invade our hearts because we all afraid. Right now, you're afraid to even walk out your house now because because of things that happen in the world. But what can we do to change that? You're going to have to go back to the basic things that Dr. King and other people taught us during the movement, that we can't let hate destroy us. No, we are two states, red state, blue state. We're not the United States of America anymore. That has created a major, major problem in this country. In the two-state system that we come up with. I don't know who came with the idea that we are red states and blue states. We are the United States of America. That's what I grew up with. In my history book tells me the United States of America never said anything about a red state or a blue state. And I remember reading something from an individual 50, 60 years ago, stated that he would be able to take this country or this world without firing one shot. And right now, he's on the path of that individual or that country taking and making that been a fact. So we're going to have to go back to our basic knowledge, the basic things of being an American, living together, praying together, and trying to straighten out this world that Dr. King and other individuals, Nelson Mandela, Mother Teresa, Fannie Lou Hamer, all the people that are involved in the movement in the day to help us move on. Hopefully we have a new generation of young people. We need the leadership of someone to come up and pick up the staff and carry on. Sometimes I wonder if that's possible. But I know that we'll be able to do this. But there are some bright young people in the world. Not only America, but we need world leadership. Because the world right now we are in terrible shape. Absolutely. I mean, I wake up some morning and think, is this going to be the day that someone make a mistake and push the wrong button and we all go up in smoke? No. But then again, America's a beautiful place. And, we all said, and I think about, that this country has been still the greatest country in the world. With all our faults and all our problems, we still are able to maintain, if we go back to our basic knowledge, basic things of being Americans, and do things we have to do. Trust in God, love each other, protect each other. But we are losing our most valued assets through technology. It's our children. It wasn't any more than anything else. Because we become by being a closed society, we have, put our kids into, I wonder what's going to happen to our children. Right now, they're going to school and they think they're going into prison. Because you can imagine a 5 or 6 year old kid going through metal detectors, going through being led in by policemen. How can this young child really learn with that type of environment? But again, we have to have that because we have so much hatred in the world that we dare not send our kids to school without that type of protection. Some people won't believe buying bulletproof vests for their children. But then again, that is something that, we shouldn't have to do that. We are better than that in this country. I'm going to tell you something that I read here. The rabbi sent one of his favorite servants to the market. He said, go get me something that is bad. He came back with a tongue. He said, now go get me something that is good. He came back with a tongue. The rabbi said, what is the meaning of this? The servant said, Rabbi, the tongue had presented and made great things. And the tongue has also made many bad things. Shabbat shalom.
James.
Well, the only thing I made my language. Right now, I'd like to pass this on to the next generation of individuals that are going to come along. I think would maybe help save our country. And we are grateful to have her here to help pass. I'm going to pass the torch on to this young lady here that she can maybe give me some encouragement. Because sometimes I wake up in the morning and feeling that I am at the end of my rope. That I don't think I'll be able to take it anymore. But thankfully, she's here. She's converting to our religion. And thank to have you here, sir. Appreciate you.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
All right, do I need to speak a little louder? All right, everyone can hear me, that's great. So I just want to say I am very honored to be here. Thank you for welcoming me here to speak on behalf of this very important and very crucial topic, which is the legacy and the impact of Dr. Martin Luther King. And I'm going to speak from more of my personal life and kind of add on to kind of the areas where I've had moments to kind of reflect his level of activism. So I want to start off with my childhood. I am the youngest of my siblings. I'm 22 years old, but most of my family members grew up in a much older generation. A lot of my family members are in their 80s, their 70s, and their 60s. So as you can imagine, most of the conversations that I had growing up were from individuals who were growing up in a time where you saw colors only, whites only signs, going to school, going to church, going downtown. It was just considered the norm. My mother always educated me on my history. And if anything else, she told me one thing: those who do not know their history are doomed to repeat it. And I heard this as a child growing up, always reflecting on it, but never quite understanding what it means. So as I grew up at what most people consider underfunded schools as early as elementary. We were taught about Black history, but it was never really a big deal for me because I grew up around this so much hearing. I was like, yeah, Dr. Martin Luther King, I know what he did, but I don't really connect with, if that makes sense. Like, I understand he's an important figure, but I didn't really understand the impact of what he did. Let's fast forward to me being in middle school. I went to Clark Shaw Magnet School, where I was exposed to different people of different ethnicities, races, backgrounds, religions, and I was blessed to have the opportunity to get a proper education on the civil rights movement and the Holocaust, something that unfortunately is very rare, and unfortunately the effects of that is seen with many youth today. So I remember when I was attending the Boys and Girls Club when I was in 7th grade, and they took us to see the movie Selma. It was released back in 2015, and it talked about voting rights for African Americans. One of the most memorable parts of that film, which if you haven't seen it, it's really good. It has Oprah Winfrey in it. It's phenomenal. But the part of the movie that struck me the most is when Dr. Martin Luther King, civil rights activist John Lewis, Marshall Cross, and Miss Pettis Bridge, side by side, hand in hand with different religious leaders. But the one that stood out to me the most was a Jewish rabbi. And for some reason, that moment struck me because during parts of the film, there was a contrast. Those who attended church that said that they were Christians, yet they were voting for policies, voting for leaders who did not believe in equal rights for African Americans and other ethnic groups. And it made a very, very strong statement when a man who is not only a reverend, but a doctor, meaning he has a doctorate, speaks up to the nation and says, hey, enough is enough. We want justice, we want fairness, and we want equality. As I continue my journey, I continue to study the teachings of Dr. Martin Luther King and many of his books, memoirs, and many of his companions, including Robert Abernathy, and I believe his name is Bayard Rustin. So let's fast forward to 2020. In 2020, unfortunately, we saw the public and very disturbing scene of George Floyd. He was suffocated to death by a police officer for 9 minutes. And my first response is we need to be united as a nation, using some of the things that Dr. Martin Luther King talked about to bring about equality, not just in police brutality, but in how different manners of how different social aspects are treated towards people of color. And what struck me the most was I saw many people using his teachings and the teachings of the Hebraic scriptures to advocate for justice. One of those verses was Micah 6:7. Seek justice, walk humbly with God, and practice mercy. As I grew older, I realized that many of the teachings that I grew up with and many of the things that I had learned about Dr. Martin Luther King myself made me realize I can't wait on a leader to make changes. I have to be the change that I want to see. And ending off with a story that I encountered recently with a group of college students. When I mentioned that a lot of people I did not realize how blessed I was to have proper education on the civil rights movement and the Holocaust. This became prevalent when I attended Bishop State Community College. I was having a conversation with one of my classmates, and they mentioned a topic regarding race. And this student mentioned some very anti-Semitic remarkings that honestly broke my heart, because they were not aware of the amount of Black and Jewish unity that brought us to this point where we could have integrated schools, fair treatment, and justice for even members of the LGBTQ community. And I took my time to educate this person and a group of students they were talking to about the legacy of people like Dr. Martin Luther King and many other religious leaders that stood by him and his beliefs to bring about this change. And while we disagreed at the end of the day, it brought some very important conversations in place that I hope I can use to educate my generation on the legacy of two groups of people that have had some of the most oppressive history in America. So I end with this. When Dr. Martin Luther King said, "Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that," we have to use every tool that we have to inspire us to love one another, to understand one another, and to bring about the change we want to see in the world. Thank you.
Two very inspired speeches, and we are so blessed to have the two of you here as part of our community and to teach us the legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and his impact on the world today. I wasn't going to speak, but I have to attribute this teaching actually to my wife, Maggie. We were studying the portion, and were it not for her, we would not have come upon this section. This is an interesting portion in light of this special weekend, in that we begin the story of the Exodus. And in today's Torah portion, Moses goes in front of the burning bush and has this encounter with God, and how it so pertains that I thought that I should share this midrash that goes back, maybe 1,200 years, 1,300 years. So the verse upon which the midrash is based, God has told Moses what he's about to do. And Moses, raises several objections. And the first objection is, Mi anochi, who am I to do this? By what authority, by what power do I have to go forth to confront Pharaoh and to tell him to let the people go? And God responds in this midrash, and it's almost literal translation, it's not about you. I am the one. God is the one who is going to bring forth the people. You are just my instrument to free the people. And underneath that, of course, is the idea that people are entitled by divine right to be free and to live well. So that's God's response to the first objection. But then Moses continues, as we know, he's a little bit on the confrontational side when it comes to God. V'chi otzi et bnei Yisrael me'eretz Mitzrayim. And v'chi, that there's an addition, and how is it that I should bring forth the children of Israel from the land of Egypt? And Rashi comments by citing this midrash By what right have the children of Israel earned to have you, God, intervene to take them out from the land of Egypt? Why should I take them from the land of Egypt? And God responds interestingly. You'd think, because I told you so and I'm God, you'd think that's what the text would say. And that's what the text says. The text says that in the future, they have earned that right because in the future they will come to Mount Sinai and they will receive the law, capital L. They will receive the Torah. Now think about that for a moment. About the future. It's about the promise. I know there are people in our country, and I think James articulated it very well, who feel discouraged, who feel that we've come so far and now there's this tension. We're no longer the United States, and that we're blue and that we're red and so forth and so on. But this Midrash teaches us that there is always hope in the future, that even though we are in the midst of something, that our right to a better life, to a life of peace, to a life of hope, to a life of goodness and fulfillment is indeed awaiting us. And that is, I think, a message that I would think that the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., may he rest in peace, would find pleasing to the ear. Shabbat Shalom. We're going to continue now with the anthem. Please rise for the adoration, page 71. Let us join together. Let us adore the ever-living God and render praise unto him who spread out the heavens and established the earth, whose glory is revealed in the heavens above, and whose greatness is manifest throughout the world. He is our God, there is none else. We bow the head in reverence and worship the King of Kings, the Holy One. Praise ye. So we have a little drumming after. You may be seated. Together on page 72, on that day the Lord shall be one, and his name shall be one.
Lord shall be one, and his name shall be one.
In nature's ebb and flow, God's eternal law abides. When tears dim our vision and grief clouds our understanding, we often lose sight of his eternal plan. Yet we know that growth and decay, life and death all reveal his purpose. He who is our support in the struggles of life is also our hope in death. We have set him before us and shall not despair. In his hands are the souls of all the living and the spirits of all flesh. Under his protection we abide, and by his love are we comforted. O life of our life and soul of our soul, cause thy light to shine into our hearts and fill our spirit with abiding trust in thee. This week, we observe the yahrzeits of Esther Friedman, Milton Goldberg, Milton Kozloff, Jean Engstreich, Norman Etheridge, and Susan Sparks. And all of us mourn the passing of Paul Bergman, and we extend our condolences to the Bergman family, a beloved member of our community, a member of our Friday Night Minion, and all of us mourn the loss and pray that his family, his two daughters, his wife, be comforted among the mourners of Zion. Is there anyone observing a yahrzeit or saying Kaddish who they wish to remember at this time? Please rise for the mourners Kaddish, page 77, or in the transliteration on page 78. And we skip the third paragraph from the bottom in the Aramaic, the Al Yisrael v'al Tzadikaya, we skip that. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei rabah, v'alma divrach hirute v'amnich malchute, v'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala uvizman kariv imru amen. Yehi shmei rabba mevorach leolam ulealmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yitala v'yitalal shemei dekudsha berichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechamata da'amiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba mi shemaya v'chayim. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the Father of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort all the bereaved among us, and let us say, Amen. You may be seated. We'd now like to call upon Diana Kovac, a member of the board, to extend greetings and the announcements for this evening.
Good evening, everyone. Shabbat shalom. So there will be no religious school in Judaism for Jews and non-Jews alike this Sunday, January 19th, due to the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. The temple office will be closed on Monday, January 20th, in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. The office will reopen on Tuesday, January 21st at 8:30 a.m. The 2025 Jewish Film Festival is still going on. For more information, film showing, and to purchase tickets, go to mobilejewishfederation.org. And Tu B'Shabbat is February 12th, which means it's time for our annual tree sale. And you can buy a tree in remembrance, in honor of someone, in donation to the temple grounds, or for your home. A list of trees is available by contacting Larry Miller at 251-648-0401. And if you're paying by check, please make it to our Spring Hill Avenue Temple. They will be planted by the Sunday School on Parents' Workday. Thank you.
The film, I believe, is about the Catskills as it exists today and as it existed back then. And there's also a dinner, but you really need to make reservations. But I don't think, I've never known a Jewish organization to turn anybody away that they want. There you have it from the person who coordinates all these things so beautifully. I've seen that film, by the way, and I highly recommend, if you've not seen it, it's a wonderful film. If you have an opportunity to see it, it's about the Catskills as it is today, people that went there back in the 50s and the 60s, and where in the Borscht Belt, much of the humor that we have today kind of grew out of the Borscht Belt, the Catskills. So if you haven't seen the film, it'd be a wonderful evening. Highly recommend it. Here would be a typical joke. I know it's a little bit late, but here's a typical joke from the Catskills. It would go something like this. So a young man in his 20s, college graduate, just graduated college. He sits on a park bench with his Zeta, his grandfather. And the grandfather says to him, tell me about Einstein. And the boy says, well, he had a theory of relativity. And the Zeta, the grandfather, says, well, what's that? And he said, well, Grandpa, you wouldn't understand. It's too complex. He said, listen, I survived the Holocaust. I survived the Shoah. I think I can understand the theory of relativity. So he says, well, think of it this way. If a young man is sitting on a park bench and a nice young woman comes by and they sit down and they have a lovely conversation, that hour seems like 1 minute. But if that same young man sits on a hot stove, the 1 minute, he feels like an hour. And the Zeta says to him, "Nu, and from this he makes a living?" That's the kind of humor that grew out of the Borscht Belt thing. I want to thank from the bottom of, I think all of us want to thank from the bottom of our hearts, James Perry, a beloved member of our community, for his wisdom, and Rachel for you sharing your story with us. I think all of us were enlightened and all of us were moved. And I hope we can take your words to heart and indeed act upon them. Thank you so much. Also, we want to thank this very special service. First of all, we want to thank our cantorial soloist and our music director, Molly, who arranged all the music that you heard tonight for our classical reform service in honor of our tradition. And it was just done beautifully. Miles Garver, who we all know from the High Holy Days. We thank you so much for your beautiful, beautiful tenor voice. I'm jealous. And your beautiful drumming. I think that added so much. And of course, to our pianist, Christopher Diemek. Thank you. I finally got that right. And on that, we're going to turn to the Kiddush, page 93. And Molly will lead us in that. Please rise.
So we'll bless the wine first, which is on the bottom of page 93, and then we'll go into the blessing on the top. Come on up. Need all the help I can get. Come on. Are you ready? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pari hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'rotzavanu v'shabbat kadsho b'ahava uvratzon hinkilanu zikaron lema'aseh b'reishit ki hu yom tekilah lemikrai kodesh zekel yitziat Mitzrayim ki vanu v'karta v'yatanu kidashta min korim v'shabbat kodshecha v'ahava uvratzon kinkatanu. Baruch atah Adonai mikadesh hashabbat. Amen. I like that harmony. That was nice. Are you ready to start it? Okay, you ready? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Beautiful. Got her bed. Perfect. And if people don't have song sheets, can you give them? They're in the very back of the prayer book. Yeah, okay.
You may be seated. We want to welcome those who are on Zoom this evening, Ellie and Cole Appleman, Emily and Harold Fink, Eric Riggs, Maggie, my wife, Marion Birkin, Leonard Wells, Pinky and David Cherniak, and Shirley Boyd. We're now going to conclude our service, and following the conclusion, there's a lovely kiddush in the back that's in our social hall. We're going to close with Lift Every Voice and Sing, the anthem of the NAACP.
I printed out sheets for everyone, which Mayim has, so if you do not have the Lift Every Voice and Sing, Mayim can give you one. Anyone else need one? They've got it? I think everyone might have one. Oh, right here. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let every sound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that resentment has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day begun, let us march on till victory is won. Verse 3. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, thou who hast by thy might led us into the light, keep us forever in the path we pray. Lest our feet stray from the places, our God, where we met thee. Lest our hearts, struck with the wine of the world, we forget thee. Shadowed beneath thy hand, may we forever stand, true to our God, true to our native land.
Mova Shalom. May God give strength unto our people. May God bless us and the world with God's peace. And let us say, Amen. Shabbat Shalom.